Hi, this is Dan Whitney with the Whitney Law Firm in Towson, Maryland. Today we're going to talk about the issue of what to do when the dealer does not pay off your trade-in on time. So I've been a practicing attorney for over 10 years. A lot of what I do is sue car dealerships and finance companies here in Maryland. And a absolutely huge problem that people have is when the car dealership does not pay off somebody's trade basically by the next date that the next payment is due. So reasonably, you would think that when a car gets traded in, the car dealer knows I better get this paid off pretty quick, certainly within 10 days or so, to make sure that my customer, their credit doesn't get hit, and also just simply to do what I said I was going to do on the finance contract, where I've agreed, okay, I'm going to pay off the trade-in. There's $15,000 that needs to be paid on the lien to finance company X, and I need to pay that off, and then I'm going to sell it, and I need to do those things promptly. Now, what happens is a lot of times after a deal goes through and the customer gets their new car, there may be some kind of issue. The issue could be perhaps the car that they've sold to the new customer or to the new owner who traded something in. Perhaps the financing on that car has not been finalized. And because they're still trying to work out how to get that deal financed, they're not going to cut the check on your trade-in, which means even though you think you're all set and you think that your payment's going to get paid off, the dealership is simply just letting it ride while they take their time to try and get financing in place for you on the new car. And you're probably not going to know you have a problem unless you're really paying attention pretty closely, and some people do, as you definitely should. But usually you're not going to know you have a problem until you get a letter in the mail, or maybe your credit gets dinged or something happens to let you know that, oh, the finance company that I'm with on my trade-in vehicle is telling me my payment is now late. Now, most finance companies, most lenders will give you a grace period of 10, 15, maybe 30 days. And that can be very helpful, but some don't. And what happens is, of course, when a car payment is late, that can go on your credit, and that can be a huge amount of time that you got to spend to get that fixed. The credit agencies are very difficult to deal with many times. And even if you have a good reason and say, here's my paperwork, the car was supposed to be traded in, it's been 2 months, they were supposed to pay it off, they might say simply, we don't care, we're not going to change anything. So one big question is, what can I do about it when the dealer doesn't pay off my trade? Now, you can email and call the car dealership and try and talk to a manager who's going to ignore you, or let your calls and your emails go unresponded, which happens all day, every day. Or what you can do to protect your credit, if you care about your credit, which some people do, some people don't. What I've recommended to people is, okay, the dealer's late, they should have made your payment, but we're at a point. Are you going to fork out another monthly payment of $200, $300, $400, $500, $600, or just let your credit get hit? I think if you care about your credit, the smart move is simply to make that payment. And by making that extra payment, if you can afford it, of course, not everybody can, but by making that payment, you're saving your credit, and you certainly, based on the various facts, but most likely have a very strong claim to then go back to the dealership and say, look, we had an agreement, you didn't pay this off, I had to make an extra car payment of, say, $500 to preserve and protect my credit because you failed to do what you're supposed to do. So now I need you to reimburse me. And they're most likely going to say no, because that's what they usually say when somebody asks them to do something reasonable. But what that gives you is probably a pretty strong case to come to somebody such as myself, and we can then essentially force them to make that payment that you made, that you were doing to protect their credit because they failed to do what they were supposed to do. Now, in a situation like this, you might say, okay, well, what's the basis for forcing them to pay? Well, as in a lot of these cases, there's something called the Consumer Protection Act. Every state has one. Some states call them different things, but the Consumer Protection Act allows you to bring a claim on behalf of a consumer for the damages that they sustained, and also allows the attorney to seek attorney's fees from the car dealership. So it's not like you would have to pay an attorney if you're proceeding under the Consumer Protection Act. You wouldn't have to pay them thousands of dollars just to get your $400 or $500 back. The attorney is able to use that statute, which contains a fee shifting provision, to allow the attorney, such as myself, to sue the dealer on the consumer's behalf, not need to charge the consumer hundreds of dollars an hour, and eventually get that money from the car dealership. And that's what happens a significant amount of the time. So to sum it up, if you're worried about your car not getting paid off, your trade not getting paid off, a smart move is to make the payment yourself, protect your credit, because it's a lot easier to get back a couple $100s than it is to fix your credit, and then take action against the dealer afterwards. And if you don't want to hire an attorney to do it, or you can't find somebody, certainly consider filing an MVA or DMV complaint, and the MVA or DMV, if they're decent, will find that they violated the agreement, they didn't pay your car off promptly, and perhaps either tell them they need to pay or do something called release the bond, and provide you essentially the dealer's bond information, and then you can make a claim against the bond. But I hope this has been helpful. It's one way to address the issue. If you've enjoyed this, please leave a thumbs up. If you have any comments or questions, please leave it in the comments. I'll answer if I can. Thank you so much for watching, and take care.